Hey everyone, it's Geeky Vices. I'm J-Belle, and here's where I'll be talking about what random bits of geekdom I've been into lately. As you can see, I got Jazz with me today because it's January, and I think one, he's a snuggly cat as usual, but also I think he's a little bit chilly, so he's trying to steal my body heat, and he'll probably try burrowing underneath my scarf at some point, but I'm sure you guys will forgive the fact that there's a kitty on the screen because we all know how the internet feels about cats. Anyway, so it's been a few weeks since I've done a video. It's just holidays, sickness, all that good stuff, and this is also getting used to this being part of my personal routine. So, just trying to get back into the swing of things. So, be a little bit forgiving. And as usual, these videos are just me talking about whatever random bits of geekdom I've been into lately, like or pop culture, and assume sometimes it's what's something that's latest and greatest. Sometimes it's something that's been out for years, or something I'm rewatching, or something I'm only in the middle of, or all sorts of things. But it's as always, it's unedited and it's just my random stream of consciousness. So enjoy the ride. And anyways, this week I thought I'd talk about one of my most recent geeky vices, and that has been watching Lost Girl, which is a great urban fantasy series. Um, so the premise is that Bo is this young woman who has been on the run since her teen years because she found out, like, during her teen years when she became sexually frisky with someone, they she would basically suck the life out of them and they would die. So she's just been constantly on the run dealing with that, not knowing what she is. And she's finally caught by some people who are similar to her, and she learns about this whole like community she's part of called the Fae, as in fairies, and she is a succubus. So she feeds off of sexual energy. Like she needs that to heal, and that's where she gets her strength. But there's all sorts of other kind of phase, and like basically it's, as I think one of the characters put it, I think Fae is the like the class or family, and then there's just all the individual species. So just because like she's a Fae, she's not necessarily going to be like every other kind of Fae. I mean, there's been shapeshifters. One of the main characters is a siren. There's, let's see what else. There's been Kappa and Baku, and I'm pretty sure there's a Valkyrie later in the series. But yeah, and she, as I said, she just learns about this world. So she's kind of like an outsider being introduced to this as an adult when most people know about this in their entire lives. And she's basically they try forcing her immediately to choose, like, either you're going to be a light or dark fae. And the main philosophical differences between that is how they deal with humans. Like the light fae don't believe in killing like they believe in avoiding killing humans, and like they're usually portrayed as being somewhat more good, and I think it's just like they're more orderly, I would say, versus I'd say the dark fae is more chaotic. They're not necessarily more evil because there's some pretty shady light fae and there's some dark fae who are her allies, but she basically decides to make herself unclaimed. So she basically doesn't have the protection of either community, and so she ends up setting herself up as a private detective along with her new best friend, who she saved in the first episode. This human girl who clearly has Russian heritage because a lot of times she'll be speaking Russian, and she is a total little like goth like street urchin who wears suit. She has really cool clothes. Like I definitely do not have the body type for that, but she definitely is like one of those people who has like wears like super high boots and like lots of like cool layers and like cool like fitted like corset type things. And she's always wearing different colored wigs to change around. And this is the best friend, by the way. This is Kenzie, played by Kesnia Solo, who is amazing. And honestly, one of the best parts of the show is their dynamic between Bo and Kenzie. How it's just this like loving like sisterhood best friendship. Although I feel like Bo definitely is like the older sister dynamic. Like it definitely feels like she's older, even though Kenzie will do anything for her. And yeah, it's kind of cool how like a succubus, it's taking twisting things around, how like a succubus is not a creature we think of as being a good creature, we think of as being something evil, and like she is actually really, really like it's a really strong moral code. Like she doesn't put up with bureaucracy or bullshit. Like she will, like if something's wrong, she'll call someone out on it, and she will try doing what she can to make things right. And I do like how they are very realistic about, like, they don't have much money, so like their home definitely is a really terrible home. Like there are holes in the walls, like there's things falling apart all the time. It's like their home looks realistic for people who have no money but are able to have like some sort of like stable living situation, because I think a lot of times these shows like make it a little bit too unrealistic about what kind of living situation someone can manage. But yeah, it's a fun show. As I said, like Siren's one of the main characters. I love Trick, who is the owner of like the local like neutral bar that is basically like the main hangout spot. I've only seen through third or part of third season. I haven't watched all of third season, even though I've heard like after second season the show kind of deteriorates a little bit. But the first two seasons are super strong. I've actually only just felt like starting to rewatch, so I'm in the middle of second season. So the first season, like we find out like down the line that the main villain turns out to be Beau's mom, and there ends up being a major sacrifice by one of the main characters and like potential romantic interest, Dyson, who is a shapeshifter. He ends up having to he has to make a deal with the Norn, and they have to suffer consequences. Another main character is his partner, Hale, who is a siren, and then we also, and like they're both police detectives, like they work in a human police detective, but they will tend to get fielded a lot of the Fae cases. Like they kind of like take care of them. That's their role, and that's part of like the point being part of the Light and Dark Fae communities is that one, it started a long time ago to prevent war because there's all this tension between the two groups, but also because they will help people find ways of using their gifts to have a job and be a member of society. So yeah, and then Trick, we find out what his abilities are down the line. He's cool. Let's see, and then there are sometimes human characters. Like Lauren is a major human character, and she's like part of this love triangle with Beau, and that's like she's this doctor who works for the Light Fae, and she's super smart, but she is very clinical and cold. And I do always appreciate that Beau for me is always one of those examples when someone complains about there's no good like bisexual characters that are given like treated like both their preferences are equally valid. Like usually it seems like someone's like, oh, you say you're bi, but you're actually more of a lesbian. Like you kind of gave up on guys altogether, or oh, you're mostly into guys, but you'll occasionally sleep with girls, type of thing. It's like no, like Beau is validly validly bisexual, and I realize not everyone who's bi is equally distributed. Like sometimes, a lot of times, people who are bi will have a stronger leanings one way than the other. But as I said, the show definitely makes it that way for her. Both genders are equally valid, equally attractive options for her. The thing is that makes part of it interesting is that Dyson, like this is like first and second season, like some of the big like interpersonal stuff is that Dyson he's a male Fae, so he is more viable in some ways because he is Fae, so he is someone she can feed off of. Like he has more chi or something that she can feed off of that to help her heal without having to worry about killing him as readily. So there's definitely that advantage that they understand each other in that way. And he's kind of like the strong, silent type. Like he's not like overly affectionate. Like he's a good like macho character who's not like toxic masculinity type. So Dyson's a cool character. I'm actually kind of rooting for them. And then Lauren's interesting because like there's definitely that instant attraction between them, and I think that there is definitely an intellectual difference because Lauren is like a genius. Like she discovers all these type of different scientific discoveries like relating to Fae, which is like such a specialized science. And but she's human, so that makes it so it's a little bit harder for Bo to be with her, because if Bo needs to feed off of someone to, like, besides just like just regular recreational sex, like if she needs to actively feed and actively be sexual and like feed off the chi and everything, like she has to really hold back and like somewhat like starve herself a little bit, because she has to be careful about not hurting Lorne. So it's an interesting dynamic. And my main reason that I'm not team Lorne is just because I feel like Lorne is a bit more cold and clinical. Like, it's not necessarily, unless I do think that Bo is gonna probably be better off with a Fae, even though she does definitely. Bo is Fae, but since she grew up in the human world, didn't learn about the Fae until like just recently. Like, she definitely identifies very strongly with the human world, and for her, like, most of the Faedom is completely new to her. Like, so Fae holidays, like Fae history, most of that stuff is like she's not used to knowing all that, but she definitely quickly becomes a major player in things. And for a lot of people, it's useful having a private investigator who's able to go into dark Fae territory if it's a light Fae that needs help, or vice versa in the light Fae territory when it's a dark Fae that needs help, or if the political leaders of either side need someone who can go across both boundaries or whatever. Like, she's outside the system, and so that really can be beneficial a lot of times. So yeah, I really enjoy the series. I like the fact that it delves into a lot of different supernatural creatures and doesn't just stick to the classic like vampires and werewolves. It, like I said, they've had Baku and Kappa, so like Japanese, like they've had Valkyrie. They have a Valkyrie later on. In second season, like major character, like pivotal characters, is that there's epic fight that's building up between the Garuda and the Naga. And part of what I find fascinating by that is that the Garuda, who I usually associate when I think of like Indian mythology, is usually I associate as a little bit more so being the good guy, because I think it's just we tend to think of birds as being more so good and happy, and snakes being more villainous, probably because I think most of us instinctually are more likely to be scared of a snake than a bird. Most of us, I know there's got to be exceptions, especially people who got freaked out by Hitchcock's The Birds, but yeah, it's just, as I said, I like how it delves around. It doesn't just stick to just one culture. There's definitely a lot of, I would say, British Isles type of vibe to a lot of the myths they tend to lean towards, and I think that's just partially just because, like, trick and such, and also I think just the word fae, and I think there's some just cool mythos there. But yeah, it bounces around, and yeah. Oh, and like one of the first episodes was the Will of the Wisp, and like it's done in such a different creative way. So I would say a lot of time. Oh, and there were Irnays, like the Furies, like Furies in one of the early episodes. So like, as I said, like it definitely goes, like, bounces all around. Like, it takes things in different directions than you would think, and it's fun. I would say that a lot of times the quote unquote cases. Oh, there you go. You can see my. There we go. Quote unquote cases. A lot of times it's pretty easy for me to figure out who did it. That's just because I'm usually pretty good at those things anyways, and I don't think it tries being as uberly clever, but I think it's more so creative with portrayals. Like the episode with the Mongolian death worm. She's an little old lady who has Alzheimer's, who just wants to watch her TV and have her pudding cups, and it's just like, it's awesome how like she's this scary creature, but she looks so harmless, and you would never think that she was like this uber dangerous creature, but she is. So yeah, as I said, the series goes very creative. I like the vibe. It's urban fantasy. Like, I always like urban fantasies where like supernatural creatures are kind of like they're very well integrated. You know, it's like yes, humans do not know typically about all this, but I like how their society like very much like runs parallel to ours, and how embedded it is without us knowing. So I like that. I like the vibe. I think Bo is a very interesting character. Anna Silk is gorgeous. I think she totally looks like a young Mary Louise Parker, and totally could play like either her young, like maybe her daughter or younger sister or something, or a younger version of her. They'll be like, yeah, she's stunning. Like, I think she does a great great job. I love, as I said, I love Trick. I love Hale. I love this. Like, there's a lot of really great characters, and I think that's probably what makes it interesting. And it does have overarching storylines. Now, as I said, I haven't seen all the episodes. I'd never finished season 3. I've only been starting to rewatch season 2 to get myself. And then I had to start over a series to then get the momentum to keep going and finishing up. And so I know that later seasons, there's Tanzim gets added, and I know that like who the leader of the Light Fae changes around, and who the Dark Fae changes around, and such. And so I don't necessarily which characters get written out. I have a couple I really don't hope it do, but yeah, I don't know how the series ends. But as I've heard, first 2 seasons are the strongest, but I'm still enjoying myself, and that's what matters. So yeah, I highly recommend the series. Other good series I would recommend to fans of this, or let's see, I would say Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans would probably enjoy this. Let's see what else would be a good one. Probably Supernatural, though it's not as. I think it's a different vibe. I think Supernatural fans would probably like this. I've only seen the first like episode 2 of the British version of Being Human, so I don't know if that's the same vibe. But I know I should watch both the British and the US version, which it's on my list. There's just there's so much good stuff these days. I mean, that's the joy of being a geek in modern days. Is like there's so much content. So there's so much fun stuff to look forward to. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. But yeah, if you like, as I said, if you like urban fantasies and some mysteries, and also like if you like, as I said, like it's very sex positive, which is also kind of like a nice thing. Like it's not shaming her. I mean, there will be times where it affects her, or like the fact that she is physically has to be promiscuous. But I like how the show, like I said, it's very sex positive, and it's fun. So yeah, I'm gonna probably just keep on saying the same words over and over again at this point, so I'm gonna stop the video. Anyways, thanks everyone. Until next time, enjoy your own geeky vices, and see you then. All right, bye.